Hey guys, we'll see if I get this up in a timely fashion. I filmed my April TBR this morning, and this is my March books that I read. I read 8 books this month. So like not terrible, but not great. I really need to like stick it and just push through some reading, get off the computer at night and read instead. But I'm just going to share with you the books that I read with really, really brief reviews because I've got to leave really soon. I start driver's ed today, so I gotta leave for that. So the first book I read was, I actually reread Clockwork Princess because kind of when I'm in a reading rut, after I read a lot of books, especially particularly thought-provoking or just really overall like satisfying books, like I did in February. I read a lot of great books. I was kind of like, oh, I'm done with reading, so I needed to read some Cassandra Clare to kind of like jumpstart. And if you're wondering what's rattling, I write them all down every time I finish the book. So yeah, I reread Clockwork Princess. I found it at Books A Million for like $3 and something cents. Hardcover. I don't even know why. It's in good shape. I don't know why it's so cheap, but it was. And then for school, I read Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. And my mom and I just looked up and down the entire house trying to find it so I could show it to you because I like holding something instead of just talking, but we couldn't find it. I don't know what I did with it. But I read that too. I also read Ferris, which was the prequel to the Lunar Chronicles, which was so good. That's by Marissa Meyer. That's fantastic. That was such a good book, and it will probably get me through until winter comes out. But I'm really excited for winter, and the cover art was released not too long ago, and it looks really epic. So I'm excited. Speaking of epics, this was not intended, but I read Firefight by Brandon Sanderson, and that was book 2 of the Reckoners trilogy. And I'm really excited for book number 3, but that doesn't come out till next year, so. And then I read Vicious by V. Schwab, which was pretty good. Kind of interesting book. Also almost kind of along the same vein as the Reckoners trilogy a little bit now that I think about it, which is where people spontaneously get, actually really similar. Maybe I'll do a comparison video on those two after the 3rd book of the Reckoners comes out. Anyway, I'm thinking thoughts in my head that I can't share, or else I'll give away the books. But people spontaneously get like superpowers, but our main character Victor is not the greatest guy and uses his evil powers for that of revenge. And so you end up really liking this guy who is this, in reality, a really despicable character. And then I read, finally have something to show you, I read Sever by Lauren DiStefano, and I've referenced this book many, many times now, and I promise I'll stop. This is the last time you'll see this book, hopefully. This was okay. It was kind of a little bit like Mockingjay in the sense of the ending, where you get to the ending and it's like the author realized that she needs to wrap up this big part of the book, and the whole premise of this series is that there's this horrible plague that kills girls at age 20 and kills boys at age 25. And nobody lives beyond that, ever. And that's the whole premise of the book, is this horrible disease that is affecting the whole world. And we get to like 2/3 through the book, and like her personal character story has been wrapped up, but the worldwide plague thing is still going on and is still out there. And then she very quickly wraps it up, and kind of easily, and a little bit, it was a little bit too easy. It was kind of like, oh, well that's convenient. It was a convenient ending. So, Wither was really good. That was the first book in the trilogy, but then it just went. So, anyway. The Raven's Bride, however, by Lenore Hart, was fantastic. This book was really good. This is about Edgar Allan Poe as told by his wife Virginia's point of view when they meet when she is very young and all the way up till her death. So it's really, really good, interesting, kind of her story about living with this very chaotic and depressed man and his manic mood swings and her health issues, which is really interesting, and we find some stuff out about Virginia that is interesting, although a bit not exactly historically accurate, but it's really good. Other than that one little twist that the author puts in for narrative purposes, this is really good, and I learned a lot about Edgar and Virginia, so that was really interesting. And then the third book I read is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, and I feel like I cannot say enough about this book. This was so good, the writing was so interesting, and I love books like this that can take, this is like the diary of a 17-year-old girl named Cassandra, and it is the 1940s, I believe, England, and they are living in a castle, and it just kind of talks about her life, but in a way that makes it interesting. Like, normally when you read someone's diary, it's like fairly boring, and the events that happen to her up until like the end are really, really like mediocre stuff, like going on picnics or going out to a dinner party or getting the inheritance of an aunt. Really kind of mediocre stuff. But the way that Dodie writes it is just so interesting and charismatic, and again, at the end it gets really interesting, really fast, and you're like, whoa, why did that happen? But it's really a really good book, so I would recommend reading that to anyone who hasn't. So that's it. That's all the books I read this month. So yeah, if you want like in-depth reviews on any of these books, I will give them to you. And like I said, now I kind of want to compare Vicious and the Reckoners trilogy because there's more similarities than I thought. So if that's something you would be interested in, let me know down below, because I don't know what you want to see. We'll see when this gets uploaded, probably a few weeks from now, but I'll see you later.